we will record here, and I'm going to pin my video, which is great. So, yeah, I mean, we can just kind of start with, how is everyone feeling with everything? I've had a real mix this week with clients, with staff, with it's been an interesting week, and I'm not too sure if everyone's feeling the same thing. um, and since we're in the wellness world, for some reason, there just seems to be a lot of uncertainty this week, and I don't know what's bringing it on. A lot of clients have been, I don't know, in this kind of flux of change. How's everyone felt it, or is it just my set of clients?
Um, I've had a good week with my wellbeing clients. The contract I'm on at the moment, which is just, as you know, to see me through until the business launches. I've actually had my first really positive week. We're in week 10 now, and two of them have got themselves volunteering roles after years of not working, and it's been 10 long, hard weeks, but they've done it. So I'm feeling like a proper proud mum today.
Oh, well, that is fantastic news. Fantastic. Yeah, I think normally things are very optimistic, but yeah, it's been a real mix this week. So we're bound to have those weeks. The great thing is not everyone's feeling it, which is wonderful. So everyone and their clients. But today, what I wanted to talk about, and I'll share my presentation, is around the desk. So Sarah, this is your first mentoring session. You're new on board as an ambassador, and we'll be onboarding people all the time. So it's about catching up and me doing different things. But I love these kind of weekly mentoring sessions to be around business, around us improving our business life, but actually how we can use this information as well with our clients and within a larger workforce. So bear with me 1 second. Whoops, I can't minimize it. How come? So we'll do this. I'm just trying to share my screen, but open my presentation at the same time. So
I
let's,
don't do multitasking. Any person that says all women can multitask haven't met me yet. I just do lots of things badly.
no,
Not when it comes to IT, that's for sure.
I know
I feel your pain.
totally used to IT, don't we? It's just one of those things. Yeah, last night I had a webinar. I had 3,200 people on the webinar last night around aromatherapy. And yeah, so if something goes wrong in that, I tell you what, I certainly get palpitations. But, there's only three of you on board today.
Easy peasy.
But I'll still give you, yeah, but I still want it to work smoothly, still want it to work smoothly. So this is our week 3 of mentoring. I am actually going to talk about aromatherapy today. That's one of the things, because when you take a look at ways of creating this great workspace, for me, it's really important. Not only is it my own personal workspace, but it's the workspace of teams, it's the workspace of individuals. You know, when I had a team of 45 people, obviously we had different areas of the business. We were a catering establishment. So as you can imagine, the great workspace that we created in different areas of our industrial unit were really quite diverse. Obviously we had kitchens, we had drivers areas, we had office space for marketing teams. I had my own office. We were over 2 floors, so we had a mezzanine floor. We had open space for staff, and yeah, it was really fun and important for us to have this area. We had a little shop at the front. We had clients coming in. So again, creating this great workspace for people to feel comfortable, to work, to relax, to meet, to discuss, to create, was actually an area that I found really fun. And I think I may have missed my calling, actually. I should have been an interior designer. I love that kind of creating a space that feels productive. If a space can feel productive, if you know what I mean. So that's really what I want to talk about today, because one of the big sessions that I did with Canon, when I did the Canon Wellbeing Week, was creating great workspaces. And it was interesting. Canon is a Japanese company. So when I pitched to them, which we're going to talk about pitches at some point, I actually really knew how to pitch well, because a lot of their team is still Japanese. And they had the most amazing Japanese gardens. They had all these kinds of things. And I love working with Feng Shui. So when we created this great workspace, we used a lot of those Feng Shui principles. And of course, I do think that was one of the reasons why I got the gig, because I could resonate really well with them. But creating this great workspace, really doing your research on the company and their background. So if it's American, you know what they're going to like. If it's Japanese, you know what it's going to like. If it's British, you know it's going to be like a little bit more reserved. If they're young, it's going to be funky. Because when I also worked with a company called Muc-Off, I don't know if you've heard of Muc-Off. They're actually based here in Dorset, but they are a bicycle cleaning company. They create stuff that takes the muck off your bike, and it's really cool. And so we created this whole wall of well-being, and of course there's lots of designers and fun stuff that we did there. And again, it was creating this great workspace. Theirs was completely open plan, which got a little bit chaotic sometimes. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And I worked with them for 2 years. Once a week I would actually go into their space and work. So there's a lot of different ideas that I want to talk about today to make a workspace great, but it's got to start with your own. And we're going to start with tidy desk, tidy mind. Now, remember last week I spoke a lot about the Brian Tracy book that I'm listening to at the moment, which is Time Management Made Easy. Sarah, for you, I put the Time Management Made Easy workbook into the Facebook group. You might want to take a look at that. And again, if you have Audible, Sarah, I keep bombarding you and targeting you. I'm sorry, it's only because you're new into the group. And we'll speak about this because we haven't had our one-to-one yet, is we'll get you a good Audible book, and that might be one that you might be interested in. But it is all around keeping this area super clean. Now, obviously, it's easy for us to be responsible for our own area, but when you're working in well-being, this is a really great area to touch on because of this. And the effort it takes can be as little as 5 minutes a day, but sometimes people don't take that kind of uncluttering time. So 5 minutes a day keeps the clutter away. I like to use as a mantra. But this is around, people get very emotionally attached, obviously, to their workspace. So not only is it their workspace either in an office environment, but at home. And we can become really attached to that. So it's spending time figuring out your configuration of your desk, having everything close by, because once you create that, then it's less effort and less stress to find things, right? And tidy desks can also mean tidy files, whether those are online filing or, around your desk environment filing. And this makes a massive difference for productivity and how you can increase that productivity yourself. So once a year, I do a big declutter. I actually go through my Dropbox files. I go through my screenshots. I go through phone messages, everything, clear it down. So you're almost starting like a new year, and a new workspace. And again, if this isn't scheduled in, it doesn't get done. And so when I'm working with teams, we actually create this in, part of the wheel of wellness. And it can be in the health wheel, it can be in a community wheel, it can be in any part of that wheel of wellness. But it is a really important area, because it has such a massive impact on team building as well. So I'm just kind of thinking back to when I worked with Canon. One of the teams that I worked with there was their sales team. And we worked about creating this wonderful area for them. We made a wellness wall, and basically it was fitted out on a Monday to Friday. So this workspace that they had healthy recipes on their wellness wall. So sometimes if you see something in a magazine, you rip it out, you pin it on the wall, and you bring it in for everybody. There was exercise classes. There was, someone was really into Weight Watchers. Anything that had a really good idea went on this wellness wall as part of their great workspace. They had a 5-minute rule. The last 5 minutes of your working day was to declutter the space. So everything was cleared and put away. I'm flashing back to it now because they had a really interesting open space downstairs, and they had sort of desks along. If you can imagine a big rectangular building, I'm talking there was hundreds of people on the bottom floor, okay? And it was split into 3. Down the left-hand side was sales. Down the right-hand side, I don't even know who sat there because I never worked with them, but it was someone. And then down the middle was open space. In that space, there was, interestingly, a pick and mix, which, as you can imagine, that went after the week that I was there. But it was like a healthy pick and mix. And they had coffee areas. They had a kiosk. And then they had breakout areas where they could have individual meeting times. And so it was really quite fascinating. And as you can imagine, could get quite noisy. So the sales team really wanted to have this distinct area. And we put plants in this area as well, to make different dividers. So it gave them this sense of their space. And that was really important for them. And so this declutter of workspace became this identity of where the sales section was. And it was great because we had big tall plants. We had all the different types of plants that create good air. And those are peace lilies. They're yuccas. They're Fatsia japonica, which is a really interesting Japanese big leaf plant that actually sucks the formaldehyde out of particle board. If desks are made of particle board, I mean, if you have any IKEA in your house, which I've got loads of IKEA, so I use these interesting types of plants to suck that formaldehyde that actually seeps out of the particle board. And so people don't know that they're in this toxic area all the time, but it is about keeping, your workspace clean and great and non-toxic as well. So we used all these ideas. And it was fascinating. It all started with the tidy desk and using desk organizers and different types of desk organizing displays. And they did invest, which was really good, in different types of, places to put your pens, folders, and workbooks. So they were not piled one on top of another. They were horizontal instead on their workspace. So it was just easy to grab. They could constantly see. They didn't have to move the pile to get to the bottom of the book that they actually needed. And so it was so fascinating when we talk about this, and it's taking a look at your own workspace and thinking, okay, can I grab exactly what I need at the time that I need it? And do I know where everything is? Probably not, but in your mind, things are compartmentalized either within your Dropbox or your workspace within your computer, but also around your surroundings, in bookcases, in pens, pencils, highlighters. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds very structured, but I tell you what, when that is ready to go every single morning when you walk in, can you imagine how it just creates this space of productivity, creativity, readiness, eagerness, enthusiasm, because that stuff is just out of the way. There's so much research on it. I'm trying to find, I did print out one of the research. There are articles published here within a living environment studies. And actually the study, which I'm reading here, says that how a tidy desk, okay, lowers the stress hormone cortisol. And, you know, you can just Google it. There's so many reports. And if you have this, they've done it in two different areas. They did it with university students and they did it in a work environment. Those were their study groups. And actually, when they had a tidy desk, their cortisol, all the ones with a tidy desk had lower cortisol levels than those with a messy desk. And when we talk about the fight or flight or mental health awareness, when those cortisol levels are high, we are putting the body under stress, and it can take one more thing to fly you off the handle. And if you're preparing for a pitch, or you are presenting, or you are trying to work to a deadline, and your desk isn't tidy, and you can't find that piece of information that you need to get to someone, you can imagine how you're going to feel really, really frazzled. And that constant inflammation in the body is what leads to a lot of diseases of civilization. Something so simple and moronic, like keeping your desk tidy. Yeah? But can you see how this is a cumulative effect? That this tiny little thing is one of many things within our wellness wheel that we can work on with our clients and work on with ourselves that actually creates a beautiful wellness program. And these things are being missed. And when you present this type of research, it's not the one thing that you do for the person. It's the whole holistic 360 view of that person that you're looking at. And changing habits is a really big one. And this is a big habit. The next big habit we changed was how people ate at their desk. Now, this was a really interesting survey that I did at Sky. So, most people at Sky, and so Sky has many different workplaces throughout the UK, and I did some work as well with them up in Edinburgh, Sky in Edinburgh. And a lot of them do eat at their desk. And their catering establishment is called Gather and Gather. And so I worked with Gather and Gather to create an amazing offering that if they were to eat at their desk, that was going to be one of the healthiest options that they could have and what that looked like. But also to stress the points of actually removing them from the desk into their into the Gather and Gather space where potentially they could still work if they wanted to, with stand-up workstations or group workstations, or just areas where they could relax. And this was really quite interesting because we are sometimes time poor, right? And so creating areas. Oh, sorry, just a minute. Hold on. I've got one student. Hold on. Got a. Oh, children do call at the wrong time, don't they? There we go. We're gonna let her call off. Sorry, that was just my youngest daughter. So when we're creating these spaces, it is about removing them from their general workspace, okay? But when they leave their general workspace, they need to then go to a space that's split for them, either to continue working or catch up on personal things. So they still need to have a space that is for themselves. This is something we really worked at with Gather and Gather. So again, envisaging that space when you're working with people, what does that actually look like? What does their personal space look like if they're going to eat at their desk? And I'm going to give you some of those tips now. And I'm actually going to put the 10 tips into the Facebook group. But what as well does it look like if they're to move into a restaurant where they can still continue to work or have breakout sessions, a working lunch, a working break? Because this really is important. And when we surveyed people, they can't take, and it's so sad, we live in a society that actually sometimes taking an hour lunch break that you are allocated is really difficult. You want to use that time wisely for catching up on other things. We shouldn't do it, but we do. So we need to create the space for it and not it impact that workspace in a negative way. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it was wonderful because throughout Gather and Gather, that is what we did. And I'm just again envisaging a restaurant and all the different areas that we had with that. So bear those in mind. Even if you're working from home, how do you create two different places and do two different spaces? Because again, we want to use our time properly. So the types of tips, I'm going to give you these 10 tips now, but don't worry, okay, because I'm going to put it in the group. So you don't have to scribble them down. Number 1 really was chewing slowly. Because what I really found is that people were rushing when they were eating. And I love people to eat mindfully, but actually when you're multitasking and eating, your digestive system really takes a hit. Okay, and what I want to avoid is your digestive system taking a hit. So it was chewing slowly. And it was choosing food that was easy to digest and easy to eat at your desk, if you're going to eat at your desk. So, you don't want to eat a burger at your desk, right? Because like a lot of the times that takes 2 hands. And honestly, we thought about all these types of things. Things that were easy were things to sip and things to drink. Soup in a mug. Okay, so your hands aren't getting dirty. Holy crap. We did bacteria testing on work areas. This is how we got the point across. And you would not believe how dirty work areas were. We had E. coli bacteria. We had so much Streptococcus bacterias around a work desk. It was gross. I mean, gross. But I tell you what, it got our point across. And what was really interesting is that obviously they're touching these areas all the time. Then they were touching their food. They were getting ill for the people who worked at their desk. The types of surveys you can do around this would just blow your mind. And when you get to that point, please, please, please ask me, because there's some really simple swab tests you can do for around a person's work area that I tell you what, they'll never eat at their desk again, or they'll never eat something and touch their mouse and touch their food. It's called Great Scare Tactics. But it was around creating a food offering that would avoid that. And when you're working with clients that potentially are coming down with stomach bugs, because that's one of the number one things in work environments when you have people eating at their desk, is that their digestive system is under attack all the time because of this bacteria. Okay? So that's really good. Chewing properly, as I said, making sure it's easy to eat food where you're not touching it. It's drinking, it's juices, it's foods that are easy to put on a fork that's cut into small pieces. It's, all these kind of snack things that have a wrapper so you're not touching the snack. Crudités of vegetables were a nightmare to eat at your desk because it just doesn't work. You're touching the food all the time, and dips are dripping and blah blah blah. So again, it's really looking at the whole thing, because when you're eating at your desk, this is my point number 2, you're eating on autopilot. Because you're not mindfully eating, your brain is thinking about something different, and so we're not chewing properly, we're gulping our food down, we're drinking our water with our food, and your stomach is trying to deal with everything. Hence, what can happen is 2 hours later, you're going to get constipation, or you're going to get diarrhea, or you're going to get indigestion, you're going to be guzzling the Gaviscon, and you're going to get an energy dip, which is going to give you lack of concentration. All of those points can be avoided. And those are the main things that you need to avoid around creating this great workspace and eating at your desk. And I'm sure you're probably all thinking of instances that this potentially has happened to yourself. The other thing about eating on autopilot, which is my point number 3, is around overeating. Now, it takes 20 minutes for the message from your stomach to get to your brain to tell you that you're full. I tell you what, you can shovel a hell of a lot of food in your mouth in 20 minutes. Yeah? And people do. And when you're not eating mindfully or chewing properly, then, do you know what I mean? I've watched my kids. My kids inhale their food sometimes. And I'm constantly saying, slow down, slow down. And so they can use a timer, And so when someone says, and this is a really good tip, when you get a half an hour for lunch, right? And it takes 20 minutes for the messages to get from the stomach to your brain. Put the timer on 20 minutes. That's the time that I want people chewing and eating their food at their desk, even if they're multitasking. So they know that, wow, because in their brain, they're like, yeah, I'll either skip eating, oh my God, which is dreadful, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay, so they're either skipping eating and using this lunchtime to catch up on work, or they're shoveling food down and not eating it properly, or they're overeating. So again, it really is around putting a timer on, eating slowly, chewing properly while you're multitasking. And I know, Tracy, you said you can't multitask, but I bet you do it. And I bet you do it beautifully. Yeah? Give yourself some credit. But if you had a structure, and if everybody in the office had a structure, then it just makes it easier. Because your energy, this is all about energy. Remember, when people work with me, it's like, no, I need you feeling 10 out of 10. Tips for eating at your desk will keep you feeling 10 out of 10 all afternoon. That's what we want for everybody. Okay, so my tip number 4 in this area is avoiding feeding that bacteria. because look, I've talked about the bacteria, but it goes further than that, okay? Because if you have people coming into the office, there's some people bringing food from home into the office. You need to have a structure for that. You need to have proper fridges. You need to have fridge temperatures. I mean, I've gone into some places where the first thing that I've done is open the staff fridge. And that's a really good place to start. A really good place to start. So again, insulated cool bags, fridge temperatures. These are all amazing tasks that will avoid issues for staff members. Especially in the summer, if you're bringing something in and that hour commute potentially that some people have into the office can be the difference of them getting a stomach bug if they're bringing their own lunch and not. So one of the companies that I worked with, one of the things that they gave them were insulated cool bags with ice packs. And they were branded and they were really nice. They were black. They were super cool. And so we had the healthy lunches. We had all the healthy things. And actually, it was amazing. We gave them all tips for the types of foods to have, snacks for, to bring into the office and containers to buy, whether, the risks and reward things, they could win them. There's so many things that you can do as perks for the office for that area, but even for yourself. So again, everything to do with avoiding that bacteria and the conditions of the staff office room. What is it? Staff kitchen? Yeah. Okay, number 5 is keeping hydrated. It was really great. So I onboarded Emma this morning, Emma Cox, and she's in our group. So please welcome her on board. And we had a one-to-one this morning. And she goes, look, Barbara, here's my 2-liter water bottle right at my desk. I was like, yes, that's exactly what we want. Tips for eating at your desk and drinking at your desk is about staying hydrated. If your brain is 85% water, at least, right, then you need to be drinking water throughout the time. And so it's interesting because some offices have wonderful water machines. Now, this was one of the tips that we did because we did want some people getting up from their workstation to fill up their water bottle just to get them away from the screen for a moment. And so we moved all the water stations to a separate part of the office, and relocating them meant that when they had to fill up their water bottle, they had to walk to a different area or even a different floor. And so again, when you're working with yourself or with people, I love a 2-liter water bottle, but actually if you can do a 500 ml water bottle and refill that twice in the morning and once in the afternoon, then you can probably monitor better and you're getting up to refill it and refresh that thinking as well. Okay? So we really want to do that. My tip number 6 is watch that caffeine overload. This is offering different types of alternatives for staff as well as instead of just a coffee machine. Coffee is great. And for those of you know, I love my coffee. Yeah, and I allow myself 2 really good coffees a day, but then I have lots of different alternatives for coffee that are available, and have those available for yourself and for staff as well. So, there's green tea, there's hot water with a slice of lemon. So for one office that we went into, we, the beginning of each week, there were lemons available. So each person were allocated, a couple of lemons. And that was really good. So they had their own lemon, they'd chop it up, and then they could make their lemon water whenever they wanted to. And those were just refreshed all the time. So it really is introducing these fun things to different workspaces. And I mean, everyone would agree lemons are really refreshing, fantastic for vitamin C, and just, not going to break the bank for an employer to purchase a bunch of lemons each week, right? Which is a really easy thing. The next thing for tips for eating at your desk is around eating at regular intervals. And so making sure that you are eating at regular intervals. Try not skipping meals. And this is because you can get the dizzy spells. And there are some people that if they get, a sort of low, and that can be a blood sugar level low, their concentration, number one, is going to go out the window. And number two, they could be quite shaky. But again, this is all about energy. This is about focus. This is about fueling the body for success. Eating at regular intervals to fuel that body is where it's at. And it takes some thought. It's like we plan a holiday. Plan your work day. Plan your meals the same way with the same care. And that brings me to my number 8, which is healthy snacks. It can be, nuts and seeds. It can be crudités of vegetables if that's the type of thing that you do want. It can be, drinks that are sort of juice-based. It can be soups. Soups can be healthy snacks as well. It's about finding things that work for you. I love fruit. You can't get any more hygienic than a banana, right? It comes in its own case. And you peel it and you eat the inside and then you throw it away. It's so beautiful and hygienic and healthy. It's unbelievable. So again, it can be things like that that can really help for the types of healthy snacks. The other things that I looked for were when, eating at the desk or eating in office environments was healthy office parties. And, this culture, creating a culture within a business or within the home that is around things that are healthier. Okay, now this is where I personally have probably a little bit of a moronic issue around being inclusive around people who actually want to eat junk food. Okay. And yeah, you will get them. It's like, well, Barbara, you can't take all the junk food away. And I have to stay very quiet around that area. And I'm open to that, but actually when you take a look at the mentality of most people is that they will bring coffees, what is it, like cakes, sweets into the office all the time and not think twice about it. It is a mentality that has to be looked at. Very rarely will someone bring a whole bag of lemons, right, into the office and say, woohoo, everybody, go for it. Yeah, I brought you all a lemon today. They don't do that. But you need to start creating a culture that actually that's acceptable. That is the new norm. And it really is, around that and creating that culture of it. So yes, the fruit bowl needs to be there, but my God, it needs to be inspiring. Actually, I've just got an idea. Let me grab something. I'll show you what I made for one company. Okay, do you know what? I don't think I've given you this. Now, this is what I made for one company, and they were a marketing company called Bespoke for Business. And so you can see here, we've got the B for B. Whoops, wrong. God, so confusing, isn't it? On working opposite B for B, and we had these fruit charts, and it was a 4-week. Rotating fruit chart. I'm sure I've got the PDF of this. And as you can see, these were massive printouts and they were double-sided. Okay, these were at people's workstations and each area of the business. So the person responsible for the fruit bowl would change it each week, and everyone knew what they were getting. Week 1, we had watermelon, red apples, and I gave them the reasons why they were eating this, okay? So watermelon, red apples, oranges, strawberries, pears, and the health benefits of each one of those. Week 2, we had mango, we had pineapple, we had bananas, plums, blackberries. Week 3, we had grapes, we had peaches, we had lychees, we had kiwi, we had blueberries. Week 4, we had raspberries, green apples, cherries, figs, and nectarines. So over the 4 weeks, all of their staff were eating all these different foods, understanding the reasons why they were eating these foods, and they could actually have these if they wanted to take them home and implement them at home for this rotation. It was such a positive thing to do, and they still do it now. And then they made these for me. I'll put this in the group. I'm really, really happy for you to creatively swipe this information to use with your family, with yourself, and with the teams of people that you're going to be working with. Because this was so easy, yet super duper effective. And I know they're still using it now, which is brilliant. Okay. And you can go in and use this with other companies. I need to write myself a note to put that in the, to put it in. Add the 4-week fruit chart to Facebook group. Yeah. So would that be really helpful for you? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okie dokie. So, right, going green in the office. If you, so remember, and for those of you who have actually done the, finished the course, you'll know that this information is actually within the, within the course as well. Okay, so all the recycling tips and all the going green in the office is actually a PDF that sits within the course itself. So we can go through that information, but what I want to do, because I know time is a constraint, again, reiterating that information, and I'll put it in the Facebook group. Because there's so much you can do at home and in the offices for the types of recycling. And I tell you what, this is an area that people still aren't looking at and still aren't being responsible for. Some places are, but some places aren't. And you'd be surprised, even the bigger places aren't doing this properly. Or people don't understand it. They really don't understand what can they recycle and what can't they recycle. So there is an education piece. So what happens is they just all dump it into one. So you know there can be some really good incentives around this as well. Aromatherapy. Now this is an area that I want to spend some time on here because we've got about 10 minutes left. So one of the books I wrote in 2007 is actually Teach Yourself Aromatherapy. This is something that I use with clients all the time, and it really is amazing. Unfortunately, this book is out of print now because it is so old. But as you can see, I use it as a reference all the time with all my little marks on there. But it's something that I do. And I have my own little blends that I use. So if you want more information on the blends that I use, we use these in offices all the time because they really can help with clarity. You know, the scientific research behind using essential oils to naturally, I was going to say fumigate, but it's not fumigate, but it is disinfect and use the, you know, to as a way of killing germs within a work environment without using chemicals, then aromatherapy is a fantastic way to do that. I mean, when you take a look at tea tree, right? which is the Melaleuca tree from Australia. The Aborigines have been using tea tree as an antiseptic, oh my gosh, since ancient times. And so, you know, something as simple and as inexpensive as tea tree can be the difference between a team coming down with a cold and not. I use diffusers around the office. I have different blends that I use in the office as well, and in different areas of the office. So as you can imagine, our industrial unit, which produced food, we, we were governed by, obviously, HACCP, which is, environmental health. But we also had areas of the office that, if we weren't careful, would incorporate the food smells, and if there is a cafeteria within a workspace that you work in, then not everyone wants to smell those foods. So it's working with the teams. It's like, okay, let's take a look at adding essential oils into making our workspace great. So with one team that I worked with, we had a morning fragrance and an afternoon fragrance, and they were completely different. The morning fragrance was all about because the morning was the time where they did their creative work. So we used a lot of, and I'm going to read from my book here as well. We used a lot of things that help with creativity. And there's peppermint, there's wintergreen, there's spearmint. These are stimulating smells. There's also neroli. Now, neroli is from an orange family, but it's from the orange flower, which is, so they have it, neroli, but it's very expensive, neroli, so you could actually replace that with orange. But it's a really good stress reliever as well, but fantastic for that creativity. Cypress was another one which was really good, and cinnamon was a really good one as well, which was interesting. It's very refreshing. It's also a fragrance that everyone is familiar with as well, isn't it? For me, when at home I make my own chai, I put fresh cinnamon, I put cardamom, I put cloves, and the smell in the house is always amazing, and my kids love it. And I love drinking it as well. And so you want to sometimes recreate that in an office environment. Now, in the afternoon, the types of fragrances that we used were more kind of calming, because, if you're on a deadline especially, but still balancing was a key. And lavender is a very good calming and balancing fragrance to also have. Interestingly, another one which is refreshing and uplifting is pink grapefruit. So I'm talking 100% essential oils. I'm not talking Reed diffusers that you buy that are chemical based. We don't want the chemicals. I want the 100% essential oils to keep the toxins low, because you will get the amazing benefits from those. So those are just some really easy examples. If you want some other examples of the blends that I use, okay, then just email me, or I'll put that information. But I use 4 different blends. One is called Calm. Guess what that's for? Being calm, obviously. The other one is called Escape. Now, Escape is the one that I actually use in my office as well. Then we have the Sentry. The Sentry is for that disinfectant. It has the cloves. It has the cinnamon already in there, pre-blended. And then we have the Ice, which is a really interesting blend because it has all the peppermint, the spearmint, the camphor. It's like super energizing. We use that sometimes when you have a meeting after lunch, okay, and you're in a small meeting space and everyone's just like eaten way too many carbs, for lunch, and like you can tell that their energy is on the way down, but they've also had like too much coffee in the morning. Can you imagine? You can change the atmosphere and you can change the way they're thinking just with the essential oils. So if you ever want any more information about this, let me know, because again, I can look it up in my book and give you those, which is good. It is amazing.
Barbara,
Yeah. Hi,
sorry for interrupting. Hi, but is it possible that, hi Sarah, welcome to the group. I was just wondering if there's a possibility you can share like a document or just what every type of like peppermint is, like antiseptic, tea tree, or like just to keep them in mind, because it's a bit of a huge list, so that would be very helpful just to have a summary of it.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, perfect.
I will definitely create a document on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Aromatherapy document. That's really good, because then it stops everyone asking me all the time, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's like, refer
it's
to the
easier
document.
for you as well.
You're saving me time. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really super idea. I'll do that, and I'll go through the ones in the book of the most popular and the ones that aren't as expensive and should be easy to get, as well as the blends that I have as well, which is
perfect.
Good. Yeah. Well,
sounds great. Thank you.
That's the kind of feedback I love. Thank you. Great. So the last one is desk posture. Now, this is an area that you can really take a look at as well, because creating this great workspace is around, the posture being really good. And this is almost like a whole morning seminar that you can do with people, because there's so many different gadgets that you can use, and I'm going to show you one that I use. This is my loop, and it's amazing because I just put it behind my chair. It keeps my back up right here, but I can move it down and I can massage my back at the same time. So it's just fantastic, and there's so many wonderful gadgets on the market that can help with posture. And I have different things that keep my computers at the different levels. So part of the well-being is the posture. If we want to keep that spine working properly, to keep that fluid, sort of providing all the nutrients to, guess what, our brain. If you're all hunched over like this and your muscles are starting to ache, are you going to be able to concentrate on your task? Absolutely not. But we all can't afford going to the chiropractor every week either. So there's some really super simple things that you can do, and this really helps with a lot of them. So, desk posture really is where it's at. Now, one of my friends who owns Life Balance Chiropractic, I'm going to see if I can get him on a Zoom where we can, he can tell us a lot more around this, so you can actually use it yourself, this presentation that I do with Dr. Josh, because it's super important, especially now people are working from home, because they are working from spaces that are not conducive to desk posture. And it's really one of the most important things that needs to be looked at. So yeah, I will speak to Dr. Josh today, because I'm seeing him today, because every month I go once a month for a chiropractic adjustment, just to make sure that I'm completely aligned, and the bits in between, to make sure that my body is working to the level that it should actually be.
It's also very important to avoid the neck and shoulder pain as well.
100%, absolutely, absolutely. And if you think that all of this gets really tight because of stress, but you're actually not having a good posture, your neck is like this, which is why if I have this behind me, my body is actually working to keep it there. So, you know, subconsciously, I'm like, oh, I'm more up straight than not. But you know, you don't have to buy a loop. You can just put a towel. You can wrap up a big towel and put it there as well. So again, it's troubleshooting all these kinds of things. So let's take a look at a quick recap. Because our hour has gone by so quickly as it always does. So creating a great workspace is around keeping that area tidy. And as you remember from the beginning of the call, we had how this is actually linked to lowering your cortisol levels in the body. Tips for eating at your desk. As you can see, this can be an ongoing topic that you have throughout your wellness offering, and how super important it actually is. So not only about healthy eating, but where you're eating it and how you're transporting food. All of those elements really, again, give it a super 360. Recycling and going green. So this, you know, can be in your small workspace or can be a larger area that you work with within a business as well. Aromatherapy, and thank you, Doreen. I will create that list of aromatherapy oils to use to uplift, to get that mental clarity throughout the day, and some ideas to use with teams as well. And it's a really fun journey to get those in the office space. And finally, desk posture. And the other thing as well, which I will also add, is I'll put the lists, the 4-week of fruit lists into the group as well, so you can have those and use them with your teams. But I'll open it up. Are there any questions at all?
No, nothing.
It's perfect. Thank you. Nothing
Great.
from my side either.
Super. So my task for you is to take a look at your own workspace and see if there's any of these tips that you can add in yourself. And then, as you can see, there's just, you know, a plethora of information just in that you can spread out and use with your team and, you know, your workspace as well.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
everyone.
much, Barbara.
Pardon? Yeah, thank you
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
I will pop this into let's just stop sharing. I will pop that into the group, and it'll be available for you to look at anytime. But if you have any questions, please pop them in. But have a fantastic rest of the day, and I look forward to catching up with everyone definitely next week, but I'm always in the group anyway. So take care. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.